So moving on to like Elder Scroll and the creation of that. So what was that? What was that process like? Like starting a team like that?
Yeah, so I left Mythic in 2006, and then in 2007, Bethesda approached me and were like, basically, this was a long time ago. So in 2007, remember, Oblivion had launched year and a half before, is before Fallout 3. And WoW was really starting to pick up steam. WoW launched, I think, in 2004. So Bethesda's like, we got this great fantasy IP. We just made this number one selling game of the year, critical hit, Oblivion. We want you to make an Elder Scrolls MMO. Do for Elder Scrolls what WoW did for Warcraft. And so um, basically. And they're like, I would, I had experience doing it with Camelot, and I was in the area, so I was in the DC Baltimore area. Basically, is where my whole career has been. So I founded the studio in Hunt Valley, which is just north of Baltimore, for people that don't know that, and I did that in 2007. I worked for the first 3 or 4 months down in Bethesda at the Bethesda headquarters with Todd Howard's team, and basically he and I and the lead designers at the time laid out what era in Elder Scrolls that ESO would be, um, kind of the rules of engagement, because it's a huge IP, what we could approach, what we couldn't approach. They weren't necessarily thinking about Skyrim in that moment, but they knew they were making another Elder Scrolls game. We had to be sure that we kept out of that timeline. So, which we did. And then after those 3 or 4 months, I went up to Hunt Valley, started the studio, and then we started to work on the game. So, which was mostly the first couple of years recruiting the right people, finding the right technology, figuring out what kind of game it would be, and then we went from there. I actually gave a whole presentation at GDC last year, so 6, 8, 10 months ago, whenever it was, last March, on kind of that process, on what the process was like, to take Elder Scrolls from an Oblivion-based WoW-style MMO and then have Skyrim launch before us, and it being one of the best games of all time and all the expectations that come with that, and how we had to change ESO pre-launch to match more the Skyrim style of gameplay than the more WoW Dark Age Camelot style gameplay that we had before. And so, everyone forgot about Oblivion the minute Skyrim launched, and Oblivion was kind of our lodestar there for a lot of the development of ESO, and we had to scramble to change. And we did. We were partially successful, but over time we worked out the kinks, and then it became really, and still is, a game that people can play Skyrim and Oblivion and the Fallout games, and then they can just kind of get into ESO, and the controller layout similar, and if you're playing with the controller, and the world feels familiar to all Elder Scrolls players. The characters are similar. The interacting with NPCs is familiar, and the stories are still hallmark Elder Scrolls. Kind of political, world-changing type situations.
So what was the biggest changes that was made during that time and to the gameplay and
Um, wow, yeah,
comparison
and
to
that's a
like
good question.
Oblivion
There
versus
were,
Skyrim?
I have a slide from that GDC presentation, and it's like literally the slide is just words all the way down, like in columns of all the things, of all the systems that we changed because of Skyrim. But I think the biggest one, in terms of production, was we did voice acting for every quest, which is huge because there are a million words in ESO, and so just getting like whatever it was, 97 voice actors to voice, 400 characters, and all of it. It was production wise, it was a very intensive process, but gameplay wise, we went from third person only tab style targeting like you would see in Camelot or World of Warcraft or EverQuest or any of the Gen 1 or 2 MMOs. We went to a more third or first person style where more, I'm not going to say shooter style, but you didn't have to have a player targeted, tab targeted to hit them. You can just actually be in range and just put them in the middle of your screen on the reticle and swing your sword and you'll hit them, much more like Skyrim. So that changed. The whole combat system changed because of that, obviously. The art style changed. We had to make it much more gritty and realistic and Skyrim looking than the more exaggerated, I'm not going to say WoW style, but more WoW style than Skyrim style than it was before. And we've released some screenshots of what it used to look like in there. You can tell it's much. It looks like a 2007 fantasy game in the screenshots, and not like the 2014 game that launched. And that was because of the Skyrim art styles influence. So a whole bunch of things changed.